something I've been thinking about. But anyway, so do you want to answer the question that I recently made to you? Yeah,
and I think it relates to we were just discussing too, right? So, I mean, there's so many things to say, you know. But in terms of what I can answer, or you know, some suggestions or ideas that I can give you, in terms of, you know, the like maybe a more, you know, accurate or correct answer that maybe Kobai Sensei could also give us. So I did consider asking Kobai Sensei about your question, because I feel like I can answer it pretty satisfactorily, but I was also curious to hear what his position or his point of view would be on it. And as a matter of fact, I indexed my my Jodo Shinju Seijin with passages that I think address this.
Oh, I'm honored. I'm honored to get.
No, it was you know, I wanted to sort of prepare some something for our conversation. So I suppose we could start with some of these passages and then see how far we get. And I'm not the most eloquent expositor of things, but I can certainly give it a go. And then maybe some questions, maybe some of these will completely answer your question. And then maybe it'll be like, they'll lead to some other question, you know. So in any case, maybe we should give that a go. I'm going to have to probably switch screens because I need to access the collected works of Shinron as well. And let me go ahead and do that really quick. So just hold on one moment. Unfortunately, this is one thing I did not prepare. So the first, really one passage that came to mind kind of immediately when I read your question was a very famous passage from Kyogyo Shinsho. And it's in the chapter on the true faith, or chapter on Shinjin. And let me see if I can find it here. It's the 18th. By the way, do you have the collected works of Shinron? The printed copy?
Yes, I do. So I've got it.
Okay. Unfortunately, I don't have page numbers because I'm using the online version.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that if you turn to the chapter on Shinjin in Kyogyo Shinsho, it should be the 18th. You know how it's kind of broken into like numbered sections?
Yep.
So it's the 18th section. It starts with hints, whether with regard.
Okay, one sec. So, I mean, we're talking about revealing the true faith. Is that the section you mean? Chapter 3?
That's right. Yeah. Revealing the true faith. And then it's the 18th numbered section in that.
Okay. Let me see if...
It's right before the question and answer.
Okay.
The threefold mind is the mind that is single.
So just before, did you say, question? There we go. Yeah, 3 minds and 1 mind. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's okay. So you see the section 18. So I'm going to, well, first I'll read it in Japanese, and then we can discuss the English translation, if that's okay.
Sure. What does it start with? Because mine doesn't seem to have the same kind of numbering that you're referring to.
Oh, really? Okay. It starts with hints, whether with regard to practice or to Shinjin.
Okay, one sec. And how long of how many paragraphs are we talking about back from 3 minds and 1 mind?
It's the paragraph right before.
Oh, just before it. Oh, literally. Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it also states in the same work?
Let's see.
Even though I am in Amita's embrace.
That's it. Yes.
Cool.
Okay.
Yep. Cool.
By the way, let me ask: are you using by any chance? Oh, okay. That is actually not the collected works of Shinran. So that is another good translation. That is the one by Professor the late Reverend.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, this is
Inagaki. Yeah. That's fine. In fact, that's great that you have that book because I actually find that that's a better translation than the collected works of Shinran. But we can read them both and then see.
I've got in this same sort of from the same thing. I've got the 3 Pure Land Sutras from the same sort of.
Oh yeah.
Format.
Yeah, another
and Honen's.
Senjaku Hongan Nembutsu Shu.
Yeah, is that Honen? Yeah, that's Honen's, right? Yeah, and I also have
that's
in the same type of. I have the dust cover for that one. I got that one.
Yeah.
Was new when I purchased. The other 2 I purchased used, so I didn't have the dust cover. Anyway,
great.
Anyways,
yeah, that's great. So wonderful. So I'm glad you were able to find the passage, even though I was pointing you to the wrong book.
We're used to doing other contexts, so yeah, that's fine. Cool,
wonderful. Let me go ahead and just read the Japanese just for fun, even though there's a limit to how much you and I can understand it. But I think we do need to kind of look at some of these words. So I'll go ahead and read that, and then let's talk about the meaning, okay?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so, しかれば、もしは行、もしは真。一時として阿弥陀如来の少女願心の栄光成就したもところに、あらざることあることなし。因なくして他の因のあるには、あらざるなりと知るべしと、namanda boots. And so the English, actually, would you mind reading the English from Reverend Inagaki's translation there?
Yeah, sure. Is this so? Starting with it is also stated in the same work, even though even though I am in Amita's embrace, my evil passions obstruct my sight, and so I cannot see the light. Embrace the light. However, great compassion always shines on me untiringly. Thus, there is nothing, whether practice or faith, that has not been transferred to us by Amita Tathagata out of his pure vow mind. It is not that there is no it is not that there is no cause for birth, or that there is a cause other than this. This,
and I think that's where it ends, right?
Yeah, this we should remember.
This which we should remember. So, this is, a very pivotal passage in Kyogyo Shinsho. And the reason, clearly Shinran is stating that whether it's practice or faith, there's nothing whatsoever that hasn't been fulfilled and directed to us, living beings, by Amida, is what he's saying, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm just looking at it while you're saying, yeah, whether practice or faith. Yeah.
Mm. Whether with regard to practice or faith or Shinjin, there's nothing whatever that has not been fulfilled through Amida Tathagata's directing of virtue or transfer of merit to beings out of his pure vow mind.
Mm.
And it's not that there isn't a cause or that there's some, cause other than this practice and faith. So what Shinran Shonin means by practice, of course, is the name. So the name that Amida fulfilled through the vow, the fulfillment of the vow. And one important thing to note too is when Shinran Shonin talks about great practice, he's actually not talking about the 18th vow. Of course, the Nembutsu appears in the 18th vow as well. But what Shinran Shonin means by great practice is actually the 17th vow. And the 17th vow is the vow that all Buddhas praise the name. If you're familiar with, you probably are, of course, but basically there's 48 vows that Amida made, right, according to the larger sutra. And, there's a lot of different translations of the larger sutra, obviously. And there's actually not differences in the number of vows that's given in some other sutras. And there's, we actually, not me personally, but they discovered the Sanskrit text of the larger sutra, or a precursor, text to the larger sutra that also has, the vows, just like we have it in the Chinese translation too. So, and in that text, this is according to a teacher of Jodo Shinshu here in Japan. In that text, the 17th vow and the 18th vow are actually the same vow. They're the same text. The vow that all Buddhas praise my name, and then the vow of, birth through the Nembutsu, through the awakening of Shinjin, are actually the same text, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in the Chinese translation, which is canonical and like I mentioned, there's actually a ton of translations of the larger sutra, and Shinran Shonin quotes from a few of them in Kyogyo Shinsho. And there's some interesting, differences in the way the text is given in the different translations. But the one we use that's canonical in Jodo Shinshu is, I want to say it's probably in the English version of the 3 Pure Land Sutras you have there. I think it's by Kumara Jiva, maybe.
Jiva, yeah, Kumara Jiva, yeah, yes.
Yeah. I don't exactly remember, but I think that's who it is. And in that version, of course, there's the 17th vow and then the 18th vow. And the 17th vow is the vow, I vow that when I become a Buddha, all the Buddhas, wherever they may be throughout, the 10 directions in however many innumerable Buddha lands, will all praise my name. And then the 18th vow, of course, is I vow when I become a Buddha that all beings who awaken faith and say my name even 10 times and wish to be born in my land, if they should not be born there, I won't achieve enlightenment. And for Shinran Shonin, the great practice is actually in the text of the 17th vow, that all Buddhas praise the name. And the reason for that is actually in the text, the passage we just read, where I believe it's actually Genshin Kasho, the seventh Pure Land Master. He says, even though I am in the midst, I'm being embraced by Amida's light, my eyes are blinded by Bono, by passions, and I can't see it. So this is the state of someone who, is surrounded by the light, because the light is shining everywhere, And Amida Buddha is the light of wisdom that's completely unobstructed, right? But I can't see it because I'm blinded by, these defilements, kleshas, blind passions. So for a situation like that, how can a person who can't see the light possibly be, saved? And well, Shinran Shonin's solution is that Amida proclaims the name and makes us hear the name. So it's by hearing that we who can't see the name, the light, the amazing light of wisdom, because we're just foolish, unenlightened beings, we are made to instead hear the name. And it's through hearing the name that we can attain Shinjin, right?
Yeah.
And attain liberation, So it's important to realize when he's talking about practice here, he's not just talking about chanting sutras or lighting, incense, or, even putting our hands together. Although those are all expressions of, those can all be, expressive of the teaching, right? And the working of Amida. But what he's really talking about is the name in the 17th vow that is being praised by all Buddhas. And what that means is it's being proclaimed to us by Shakyamuni Buddha, for example. In our context, Shakyamuni Buddha is the Buddha in our world, right? Who came to, according to Shinran, came to teach the primal vow, the original vow of Amida. So I think this has some, relevance to your question, because you were, I think you asked, are all these things we do, like listening to the Dharma and saying the Nembutsu and wishing to go to the Pure Land, wanting to go to the Pure Land, or not wanting to go to the Pure Land in some cases. That's a whole nother topic that we need to discuss.
Yeah. There's a whole, in Tanishu, isn't there? There's a whole discussion of Yembo asking Shinran a question. Sometimes I don't really want to go, and worried that meant,
right.
Anyway, yeah.
That's an important, and Shinran has a unique perspective on the three, aspects in the 18th vow that we definitely need to discuss at some point. But the basic, principle is that the name is even before it reaches us, and enters our heart and mind and gives rise to Shinjin, it's already great practice. It's already working. Okay. So the question is that in your question is to what extent can we say that the Nembutsu, for example, is our practice, right? Because
it isn't. I think it was more like it isn't our practice at all. Kind of is that, that basically it seems like the whole thing comes from Amida, and I just show up, kind of. That's like I just go, yep, okay, and I listen to the Dharma. I wish to go to that land. I will entrust to Amida. But that all being able to do any of that is because of Amida. The practice itself is because of Amida. Do you see what I mean? So yeah, it's more. I think it was more like, to what extent do we even have any role to play? I think is more my question.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Well, that is exactly, and it's a great question. It's a difficult question. It goes straight to the heart of, the meaning of practice and faith within Jodo Shinshu, right? Because as we just read, it all is coming from Amida's side, right? Through his directing of...
The answer would seem to be yes from that brief passage.
Exactly.
Anyway, yeah. Sorry.
So, well, do you have any thought or question, or what do you think of those passages? And then does that, as far as background, how is that for?
It actually leads to other questions that I already had that I haven't asked you yet, but it actually relates. But just sticking with the one I asked you about, that all coming from Amida, this to me seems to suggest that it does. That that even though I'm obstructed by evil, passions, fleshes, obscurations, blind passions, ignorance, illusion, attachment, aversion, all that stuff, the light still works, the power still works, and it's being transferred. It's all being transferred from Amida. And so how could a being who's full of all those things, first of all, do any practice that would mean anything, that would do anything, first of all?
Right.
If I'm that, I am, then how could anything I do lead to anything, or gain me any merit, or have any real power to put me on the path toward enlightenment? Like even one iota, even one bare step. Like, do you see what I mean? So
yeah, exactly.
That comes out of that for me. And then also that it's always shining on me untiringly. So it's so it's still coming. The transfer is still coming, sort of in spite. Almost.
Right. The working, we're being, it's not that we are the ones doing the working. It's that we are being worked upon by the Dharma, by the light, so that is the key, I think sort of the quantum shift in perspective that comes with Shinron's teaching, is that it's not that we have to say the Nembutsu with all our might, because if we don't say it, we can't be saved. That's not it at all. It's that all of it, whether practice or faith, it's all being directed to us. So that's just like you said, that's the
key practice
perspective.
Whether practice or faith, that's like a key statement there. Whatever it is that you're doing, it's actually from the mind of Amida. It's actually from the vow power of Amida, the vow mind. The light.
Right. And that's a great, isn't that an amazing passage? To
us, that's where it's coming from. Whether it's faith or your practice, or I'm going to say your practice seems weird to me. Now, in the context of, to say whether it's just faith or practice, just get rid of the your. It's from anyway.
Yeah. Well, I have some more, as you can see, I have some more passages that kind of pick up on the same. So that I wanted to introduce that passage because I feel like it sets the stage of what Shinron's thought is on the topic of practice and faith. And there's a whole lot more we can discuss about that. And, I'm sure we'll get the chance to do so at some point. But especially what you said about, being incapable as an unenlightened being who is obstructed by these, kleshas and Sanskrit or blind passions. To what extent is any practice that I could do pure to the point where it could bring the fruit of, the Buddha mind or the Buddha nature, right? And Shinran, of course, discusses that in detail in Kyogyo Shinsho, and we need to, discuss that at some point too. But for now, I want to share another passage. Now, this one is not in Kyogyo Shinsho, so I will go ahead and read it from my passage here. Hold on just one moment. I have to see. Okay, it's actually the last. I believe it's the last letter. Yeah. The final letter. Now, this is in a letter that Shinran Chonin wrote.
Okay.
And I forget to whom it is addressed. Hold on. Just one moment. Oh, that's the wrong book. Okay. Actually, this doesn't really have an address. But now this is a bit long, so I won't read the Japanese. But I am going to read the English for you. The Sutra of the Treasure Name states, the Nembutsu of Amida's primal vow is not our practice. It is not our good. It is simply keeping the name of the Buddha. End quote. And then this, from here, it's Shinran writing his commentary. It is the name that is good, the name that is the practice. When we speak of practice, we mean doing good. The primal vow is clearly the Buddha's promise. When we have understood this, we see that the vow is not our good, nor is it our practice. Hence, we speak of other power. The name fulfilled in the primal vow is the direct cause of our birth. In other words, it is our Father. The radiant light of great compassion is the indirect cause of our birth. It is our mother. End passage. Okay, so let's break this down. First of all, how does that make you feel?
I'd probably want to hear the latter part of it again, but it was pretty resounding. The first part was, it's not your practice.
Yeah.
There's no good.
Now,
practice is, usually when we think of practice, it's a good act. It's, it's something to get to gain merit or to, but in this case, it's not that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of what I gathered from the whole passage.
Yeah.
But.
Exactly. And so, like you said, it says, the Nembutsu is not our practice and it's not our good. It is simply keeping the name of the Buddha. And in Japanese, the word keeping is, let me see here, tamotsu, which means to hold or to keep, to hold to or to keep the name of the Buddha. It is the name that is the practice. So this goes back to what we discussed before about Shinran, saying that the name, which is being praised and proclaimed throughout all of existence, the name is the great practice that is, constantly calling to us. And then he goes on to say that the primal vow is the Buddha's promise. So this term yakusoku, or promise, refers to the kind of the format of the vow, where Amida says, if the beings who, hear my name, actually in the fulfillment passage of the primal vow, and we'll discuss this as well, because Shinran puts a lot of emphasis actually not just on the text of the 18th vow, but on the passage of the fulfillment of the 18th vow. And in that passage, Amida says, all beings who hear the name, even once, and awaken the joyful faith, awaken Shinjin, if they should not be born in my land, then I will not attain the perfect enlightenment. So the format of this vow is a promise, basically. That's the meaning kind of vow. It's a promise that if I attain enlightenment, then those who hear this name, which will be proclaimed, will be born in my land. That's the Buddha's promise, right?
Yeah.
So when we understand what Shinran is saying in this letter, is when we hear and understand that is the promise of the Buddha, then we realize that the Nembutsu that we recite is not our practice, and it's not our good, because Amida already fulfilled that promise, that vow, with his practice, right? As Dharmakara Bodhisattva, he practiced for, in the larger sutra, it says he practiced for endless eons. That's kind of a symbolic, inconceivable length of time.
Inconceivable, incalculable, immeasurable. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily time that we can measure with ours in a scientific linear sense. It's kind of more of there's some concept of time in Buddhism that is actually not linear, but kind of like almost three-dimensional. It's like deep, there's like a depth to time. It's like coming from a timeless place of kind of the eternal, time, right? Sort of a time beyond time, but that kind of breaks into our, time in the person of Dharmakara Bodhisattva, who then does his practice, right? And Shinran says that in all of those eons of practice, Dharmakara Bodhisattva never harbored, any selfish thoughts. He always had, there's a great passage in the larger sutra, he always had a smile, and he was always filled with compassion for, beings that he was helping. It's a really moving, great passage, And that practice, the fulfillment of that practice, is the vow power, the power of the vow that is working. So it's not our practice. Did you do anything to fulfill Dharmakara's vow? Because I know I certainly
think didn't. About that when they talk about the practice, right? I think exactly what you're talking about. I think, well, Dharmakara Bodhisattva practiced for all these inconceivable nayutas of kalpas of immeasurable time that we can't even it wouldn't just blow our mind. It would blow, implode, warp, freak out, obliterate our mind if we tried to actually conceive it. Anyway, so and that he did that for all that time. Every practice you could possibly think of, he did to try to in the Bodhisattva vows. But he went to every Buddha, to gather more teachings and more practices. So he's not. So that's what, when I think of the practice, that's what I think is the practice that resulted in, Nembutsu and him being a Buddha. So
Right.
how could any of that be from me?
Exactly. Yeah. And the sutra says that the vow,
that, like, yeah, even
you can't add to it. You can't help it. It's not, I can't help this,
here, let me help this
the
along.
vow. Yeah. So that's where the critical issue in Shodo Shinshu is that there's nothing we can add to the working of the vow. It's already been fulfilled. It's already fulfilled by, Amida's practice as Dharmakara. And now Amida has become that light. He is, Amida, and Amida is, Shinran says, the light of wisdom that is shining unhindered throughout all of existence, top to bottom, from the ends of wherever, And the name, Shinran goes on to say, is heard everywhere because of the fulfillment of that vow. So that is the practice. The practice is, I'm not the subject of this practice as much as I'm the object of this practice. I'm the one who's on the receiving end.
Yeah. And I think, is that what is meant? I was just going to come back to this. You just brought something to that I was going to say about keeping and holding the name. And that's the only reason you're keeping and holding it is because it's been given to you. Is that
exactly?
Right?
Yeah.
Like, and if you're keeping it and holding it, that means it's already been given. So
right, exactly. That's a great insight. Yeah. It's not like Amida is, sitting, in the Pure Land saying, I'm not going to give this name to somebody. It's already being
not waiting
given.
for you. He's not waiting for you to go, okay, yes, I'll receive this now. Like it, like, or it. Well, okay, let me come back to that. But it's not like it's already here. Here you go. Here it is.
Yeah.
This is for you, ignorant, wretch, evil beings. Here you go. It's already out there. The practice is already done. In fact, about 60 gazillion years ago, or whatever, conceivably, if you wanted to put it in numbers, like, so it's already done, and it's been emanating since then. So it's already given. So
there's nothing that we have to do to deserve it. No. We're not. We don't have to.
Here's my question. Here's my question. Is this where our kind of part comes into it? Do we have to receive it? Do we have to go pick? Do we have to? Do you see what I'm saying? Is that what we're doing when we're stopping and going, okay, I need to find a good teacher of the Dharma. I need to listen deep, I need to listen deeply. I need to trust, say his name and wish to be born in his land. Like, what is that? This is where I'm. Is that what we're doing? Are we just receiving the gift by doing that? Is that just us receiving the gift and that? So we just do that. Like, so when somebody's offering you a gift, like we've said this in the last session, I think, where you were saying they're giving you a gift. The only way, like, you're not going to not take the gift. Do you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Gift.
Well,
you really don't like the person or something, but like, this is the ultimate Buddha of all, universes. This is like in all universes, and he's everywhere, and he's giving you this gift. So you're getting, you know what I mean? Anyway, sorry.
So, and no, it's a great question. And I think that the language of, receiving Shinjin is a very specific, and especially when we get away from the Japanese, we're now using English, which has a whole nother set of meanings and connotations and religious, echoes from Christianity and so on. And I want to say, like, maybe the exact phrase, receiving Shinjin might not be the most useful way to imagine what's going on, right? Like, I really like the quotation I think I mentioned about that Renyo Shonin says about clothes drying in the sun. The sun, the power of the sun, the heat of the sun, warms the clothes from top to bottom.
Yeah.
That's a more kind of natural image. So listening and airing our doubts, discussing the Dharma, reading the Dharma, the sutras, etc. It's more of a natural process, I want to say. It's not like an all or nothing, one time kind of, and it's not something that we can and you should know this. You can't trick yourself into getting Shinjin, right? You can't even.
Well, take it from me. I've tried. It can't be done. I've tried to do it.
Yeah. So it doesn't work.
3 or 4 times. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Not conscious.
Yeah, and it's not like.
Consciously.
And there's a related issue here. Like, can we beg? Can we ask Amida to give us Shinjin? What do you think?
No. My answer, I think, would be no, because it's already being given. So there's not.
Right. It's not being withheld from you.
There's nothing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of. Okay, here. Let me put it this way. So, can I? This is from what you just said, bringing back the analogy of the of the putting the laundry out to dry, and the sun does the drying. I just clip it on the line. I have to take it out of the house, take it out of the lump of wet things, and hang it on the line. But that's just common sense. And then the sun's going to dry. So, it's kind of like, okay, in the early 90s, I read the Tricycle magazine article about Pure Land Buddhism. Okay, there was this article. And it's like, oh, that's interesting. Boy, I wish I could do that practice. That'd be a lot easier. but I thought, well, I have capacity. So the arrogance, you know what I mean? Completely clueless. Clueless. But that seed from that article always stayed in the back of my mind. It just was always back there. And I remember I would just always every now and then, I remember that. That's interesting. But just wouldn't. So, and then I had that for probably in my mind for probably about over 10 years. And then the early noughties, I had an experience where it was one of those before and after life. This is my life before this, and this is my life after this. And I had that, one of those real, it was like the weight of my karma, basically, and just crushed me. I was watching this video. I remember watching this video about this guy that did a paper about reincarnation.
Oh, okay.
Trying to do it as a scientific thing. So it was, about rebirth or reincarnate. Well, he was calling it but what he was essentially saying was how Buddhism defines rebirth, is how he was actually explaining it. So I was watching, and he was trying to do it. He was actually trying to submit a paper on that, on how it, as a scientific phenomenon, as a, phenomena. Anyway, so I was watching it. For some reason, I just realized how incapable I was. There was something in what he was saying. And I realized I'm never gonna be able to do the Buddhist practice effectively. I'm never gonna be able to deal with this. You know what I mean? And just my whole off of my whole life because anyway, there's something that happened a few years before that was another one of those moments before, life before this, life after this. Anyway,
Yeah.
I went to my knees and it was kind of like, oh, now, so 10 years later, I realized, oh, that was the reason for this practice. And I literally, the weight, I just literally went down on my knees. And I think I actually went down and put my forehead on the ground and was crying out to Amida.
Wow.
Buddha,
Yeah.
or say the Nembutsu then.
Yeah.
And ever since then, okay, so I'm bringing it back to what we were talking about. Ever since then, I have never not been able to, like, I'm always turned back toward that. Even if I've gone and explored other things, and I've always it's still there. It's the light's still there. I'm still am gonna. Do you know what I mean? I still kept going back to it ever since that moment. In fact, ever since that moment, I've still gone back to it. Like once that happened, I haven't been able to not go back, no matter how much I've sort of gotten distracted either by life or other Buddhist practices or other, systems, or do you know what I mean? Other philosophical things or whatever's going on in the world. I would always, well, in fact, actually, what was going on in the world would always brought me back to Amida. Actually, what's going on in the world reinforces always. I made a video about this. Actually, always reinforces the Amida Buddha. Well, Buddhism in general, but particularly what's going on now in the world. Yeah, it's like it's obvious. Amazing, it's Mappo. Yeah. It's Mappo, and we're in the declining end of the Kalpa. Anyway, so, but does that relate to it? That some like, and I'm not doing that. Like, it's not like it's not like, because once that happened, it's been in my life now, without me trying.
Yeah. That, I mean, I would say that
always, was like my experience always drives me back to it. My experience always like, I need to meet it. I need to meet it. I need to meet it. Okay. All right. I'll listen deeply. Okay. I'll go back. Yeah. Ever since then.
Well, and that's all part of, Amida's working, to bring you back and to call you, So, and in the sense of, I mean, well, one thing in Buddhism, not just in purely in Buddhism, but, taking refuge in the Buddhas is, a significant thing. I mean, in the West, there's all these, notions of what makes you a Buddhist. People think, if you only eat veggies, that's you're a Buddhist, or if you meditate. Like, it's common in the West to believe that, meditation kind of equals Buddhism, sort of, right? But what really makes you a Buddhist is in Buddhism is taking refuge. The three refuges: taking refuge in the Buddha and in the Dharma and in the Sangha. So, and in traditional ancient Buddhism, I mean, that taking of refuge was regarded as having a beneficial effect on your mind stream. Like, it wasn't just a ceremony. It was actually something that couldn't be lost. You couldn't, like, once you had taken refuge in the Buddha, that became a part of your mind, to where you were now going in like a new direction, kind of. So, I mean, I think that's maybe in your experience, that is exactly what happened. I mean, you had that moment where you sort of took refuge in the Buddha, and then that was kind of became a major part of your life, right? Kind of a working in your life. So that's my take. So.
Yeah. So it seems like I've not ever not been able to not come back to it. You just, it's inevitable. I will always wind up back at Jodo Shinshu, back at Amida's feet. It seems like, in spite of me, kind of.
Yeah.
So was there any other things you had prepared that you wanted to?
Yes, actually there were. And so we discussed this.
Yeah, it's been about an hour. Yeah, so I'm mindful of your. It's
I'm fine. My time is okay. So if you want to go for
yeah,
another 10-20 minutes, no
yeah,
problem here.
yeah. Okay, cool. Yes, please.
Okay. Um, let's see. Is there anything else I wanted to say about this passage? I suppose not. Well, we were discussing, okay, we were discussing the concept of receiving Shinjin, and then, we're receiving and so on. And I kind of suggested that, if that language is helpful for you, great. But if there's another metaphor, if there's another way of looking at it that might be more useful, then, you
Yes,
could
there probably would be some. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I was going to ask you is, what is the Japanese, say in those? What is the Japanese the nuances of the Japanese?
Well, usually it's pretty much the same as in English. So, Amida nyorai kara shinji no itadaku. So, itadaku is actually a word that means to receive with gratitude. And in fact, Japanese before a meal, they always say itadakimasu. It's like the saying grace before the meal. And it basically just means I receive this with gratitude. But on a deeper level, it's a realization that this meal, which is being offered to me, is coming to me through all of these connections. There's the people who prepared it. There's the animals. If it's a meat dish, the animals that, gave their life so that I can receive this life. There's, the farmers who grew the crops. There's all of these causes and conditions, we say in Buddhism, right, that are present in this meal that I am now receiving. So that's kind of the Buddhist background of, this concept. So the term in, if we are talking about Shinjin is, to receive Shinjin with gratitude. And it really is just that. It's receiving what's being freely offered, what's being freely given to you, with gratitude. And then Shinran Shonin says that once we, receive Shinjin, we become people who repay the gratitude of the Buddha. And that's Kobai Sensei, talks a lot about Ho Nembutsu, or the Nembutsu of gratitude. And I think Paul Roberts too, would sometimes talk about, like, if you're drowning at sea and a ship comes by and picks you up, and you're laying there on the deck and your life has been saved.
Yeah.
What are you feeling?
Oh, I should say I'm grateful. You don't really have to. Yeah,
you don't have to.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. You don't have to think about it. You just do it.
Yeah, you are grateful, right? Your life has been saved.
Automatic.
So,
it's automatic.
Yeah. And Shinran Shonin uses the same metaphor where, he says that Amida is like on a ship, and, with Kanon Bosatsu and Seishi Bosatsu, and they're, sailing out on the sea of birth and death, pulling people in, to the ship. That's the metaphor that Shinran uses in his hymns. So it's a good, analogy. It's a good image, I think. So going back to, what did the Japanese say? The Japanese term is itadaku, but there's a lot of other terms too. There's eru, which means to kind of to get Shinjin, to sort of receive Shinjin. There's yakutoku, which sort of means, to attain, almost like to really, like, have to get it, kind of, like, to, like, it becomes something that, that is, it's not that you're grasping it,
Yeah.
but it's that it's becoming yours in a sense that isn't like, it's like a subjective, sort of sense. So, and that's kind of a question I could definitely ask Kobai Sensei as well. What's the best translation for Gyaku Toku, Shinji no Gyaku Toku? It's, I'm not an expert on the Japanese in this particular way, but yeah, the phrase, to receive Shinjin from Amida is certainly used widely, and it's in the text as well. So,
okay, here's a good. So we'll stick with the analogy, the life-saving analogy.
Sure.
Ship. So you're thrown this life preserver, or life raft, or a rope, or whatever, or a hand, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I don't have to go, okay, I have to think. Now I'm going to practice. This is going to be a practice now where I'm going to grab onto that. And I've got to be, it's important how I grab onto it. And it's important that I have the right mind state to grab onto it. No, it's not that. I just grab onto it. So that action of grabbing onto it, is that kind of that there? I think is that a good analogy for what I'm doing when I'm working with a good teacher, when I'm just listening deeply, when I'm wishing to be born, when I'm like, it's an automatic, in this situation, I'm going to grab that life raft. I'm grabbing that. It's not like my practice. It's not like,
right.
See what I'm saying? It's not like,
yeah,
oh, I figured this out, that if you throw me that life raft, then I'll be saved. It's not even, it's just, here it is. Oh, I'm going to grab that. Yeah. So that's kind of like how I see what I'm doing when I'm literally just grabbing the life preserver. I'm literally grabbing the lifeline that's been by working with the teacher, listening deeply. Is that doing the things?
Yeah, the only caution I would say is that there is a tendency, because our minds are just geared to this kind of thinking. There's a tendency to think in that situation, well, I've listened, so where's my Shinjin?
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Or I'm saying the Nembutsu, I'm working, I'm listening to a good teacher. So why isn't, where's the results, we fall into that way of thinking. So
definitely. I definitely have done. But in this sense, if it's in this sense, if I'm literally
life
doing
and death,
I'm not thinking about anything. When that lifeline comes down, here's me drowning in the sea of, samsaric, sea, or just thinking of analogy. I'm drowning in the sea. Suddenly there's a boat and a lifeline that gets thrown to me. I'm not going to be thinking about it. I'm just grabbing onto it. I'm not thinking. I'm not calculating. That's what I'm saying. The difference is, I'm not even thinking about what the end result is. I'm just grabbing onto that because it's obvious I need that in that second, in that split second when that thing comes. And that's kind of how I see it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not even thinking about the end result. I'm just thinking, right here is a life raft. Grab it. I'm just in it. It's just that it's almost, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
If I stop and think about it, then I go into all that other stuff. If I do it if I stop and think about it, my mind starts. Then I start to try. But if I just think of it that way, I don't.
Well, you should think of it, as a thing, as something that is being, like, if you're looking at the sense of the life raft, it's in a sense it's being given to you, right?
Yeah.
And you're just receiving it. You're So if you look at it in that way, then I think there's no problem. I think it's a good analogy. yeah, I mean, I think that's a good, image. If that kind of, you know, those sorts of metaphors, are, more useful to some people than to others. I mean, but in my opinion, I mean, it's a good metaphor that is, expresses the working of, the salvation of the Amida Buddha. So, okay, so I do have a couple more passages. Bear with me. um, and so from here, we want to move on to, a famous passage from Tanisho. And this is in Tanisho. Let me go ahead and see where it is. Not there. I believe it's in the second chapter, actually.
Second chapter.
Mm.
When you say you mean fascicle?
Yeah, the second fascicle.
Okay, yeah.
And I'll kind of paraphrase because it's a little long, but basically Shinran Shonin is saying to people who are coming to hear him that, you're coming to ask me about this teaching. But if you think that I have like some special knowledge other than the Nembutsu or scriptures that teach it, you're mistaken. And if you're looking for special knowledge, you should ask the scholars on in Nora or Mount Hiei, because they are the experts in all of that. And then he says, my translation might be a little different than yours, so bear with me. But as for me, I simply accept and entrust myself to what my revered teacher, that's Honen Shonin, told me. Just say the Nembutsu and be saved by Amida. Nothing else is involved. And he says, I have no idea whether the Nembutsu is truly the seed for my being born in the Pure Land, or whether it is the karmic act for which I must fall into hell. Should I have been deceived by Master Honen in saying the Nembutsu were to fall into hell, even then I would have no regrets. The reason is, if I could attain Buddhahood by endeavoring in other practices, but said the Nembutsu and so fell into hell, then I would feel regret at having been deceived. But I am incapable of any other practice, so hell is decidedly my abode, whatever I do. And so the meaning of this passage is essentially, basically, Shinran is saying the exact same thing that we were discussing before, which is, I'm not capable of doing any practice. So even if, let's just suppose that the Nembutsu, if I said the Nembutsu and I fell into hell, I wouldn't regret that, because I can't do the other practices anyway. There's no way out for me, right? Is what he's saying here. And then in the same Tanisho later on, this is in fascically 8. And it says, the Nembutsu for its practicers is not a practice or a good act. Since it is not performed out of one's own designs, it is not a practice. Since it is not good done through one's own calculation, it is not a good act. Because it arises wholly from other power and is free of self-power. For the practicer, it is not a practice or a good act. Yeah. And this is, again, saying, and the Japanese is interesting because it says, Nembutsu no gyoja no tame ni higyo hizen nari. So this no tame ni means kind of, for you, from your side. It's not a practice, and it's not a good deed, right? Well, why is it not a practice? It's because, as it says in the passage, it arises wholly from other power and is free of self-power. So this is obviously talking about the Nembutsu that is based on the primal vow. It's Nembutsu of, Shinjin, and of not the Nembutsu of saying the Nembutsu to say so many times, to accumulate some sort of merit, right? So I think here, we have a pretty good statement where, there's really no, whether we're listening to the Dharma, whether we're chanting a sutra, which is a common practice in Jodo Shinshu, or talking to a good teacher. None of those things are practices, right? In the sense of, in the like the Tendai sense that you were talking about, or the Nichiren, or the Lotus Sutra sense. Because even the Nembutsu, which we commonly refer to as the practice in Jodo Shinshu, is actually not a practice for us. It's not, because it doesn't originate with us. It's not something we're doing, to get something, right? It's the Nembutsu of gratitude. It's simply the Nembutsu of saying, it's like saying, the meaning of Namo Amida Butsu is basically, thank you, Amida Buddha. That's the meaning, right? The true meaning.
Yeah.
So I thought that
it's not not at all like our practice.
Right.
It's like we're doing something, but we're not doing it as a practice that is anything like any other practice. Like, because the practice, it comes from Amida. That's the only reason that we even can conceive of doing it, have it to do, and are doing it, is because Amida makes that possible.
Yeah.
That kind of.
Yeah. And Kobai Sensei, really emphasizes this point, the kind of the difference before of saying the Nembutsu, before you've received Shinjin, and then saying the Nembutsu after. And what he means is, the Nembutsu, the true meaning of saying the Nembutsu is from the perspective of someone who has been saved, by the power of the primal vow and Amida Buddha. So it's really, thank you, Amida Buddha. it's pure, it's gratitude. It's not, there's no calculation involved. There's no thought like, oh, I didn't say the Nembutsu this week, so maybe I'm not headed to the Pure Land. None of that kind of thinking is in any way involved in that kind of calculation, right? Yeah. But Kobai Sensei also says in one of his books that even if someone hasn't yet reach that point where they have Shinjin that is like a diamond, saying the Nembutsu can still nourish you spiritually. Like even if you're saying the Nembutsu, in your daily, ritual or liturgy or whatever, it's still, a good thing that is, working on you. So, and then Kobai Sensei says that even if you say it without completely understanding, everything behind it, eventually you'll come to recite it with true, gratitude and so on. But, it takes time, and it's not something that you can just, snap your fingers and.
Oh, don't I know it?
Yeah.
Oh, don't I know it?
I mean, it would be great if there was like some, ritual where you could receive Shinjin. And in fact, there are, they're called Kakure Nembutsu, but there are Jodo Shinshu splinter groups historically in Japan that kind of fill that void by introducing like a ritual in which you receive Shinjin, like, from a teacher or something. And of course, Rinyo is very critical of all of that, and so on. And the but because there is no like ritual or ceremony, people invented one. That's just more calculation, right?
It just seems so absurd, the thought of that. I didn't know that, and the thought of that just strikes me as so absurd that the human ritual could
right
somehow.
Well, it's the way our minds work.
Bring that about. Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, no,
but that's not. Just to be clear, that isn't orthodox Jodo Shinshu teaching.
No, I get that. I understand. I do get that. Right. Was there any other? Sure.
That's pretty much all I have for that, question you had about practices. And so my question is, what do you think? And what are your thoughts? And was that at all helpful, I guess?
It is. It's almost kind of like even to get it, even going a step further with that, the metaphor I came up with, I'm just grabbing onto the life raft, not thinking about it. It's almost like don't even think about it. Just do it. You just, you know what I mean? Don't worry about it. Do it.
Yeah.
Just,
yeah.
And eventually, that's, I don't even want to what the eventually is. Just do it.
Like
this is obviously your situation. So this is what you do when you're in that situation.
Right.
Kind of like, don't think about it too much, really. Just don't think about it at all. Just do it.
Yeah, well, like Shinran says, it's no working, it's not working.
Yes.
But then if you talk about it too much, it becomes a problem of working, he says in the letter. So, that's exactly what happens.
If I'm trying to be, like I heard somebody say, if you are trying to be humble, but if you're being humble, but then you claim it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, you lose it anyway. Something, not really exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyways. Right. Well, thank you so much. This has really been helpful again today. Thank you. Thanks for taking this extra time today to appreciate it.
Sure.
It was a lot to cover. I can see that it is a big question. Sorry for my oceanic questions.
No, it's great.